Every day, I sift through about 60 to 90 emails. One thing that I do have to advise to brands is that because it is becoming such a competitive market, the ones that are offering to pay are usually the ones that get the best content. My number one rule is always choosing products that I feel like represent me. And that's just because in this content creator realm, like, yes, you do have to get a job and make money and you have to monetize so that you can make a living, but your job also is to be truthful. And a lot of creators are not like that.
Welcome to the DTC Insider Podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisenthal.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the DTC Insider Podcast. I'm Brian Roisenthal, your host, and today we are actually flipping the script. Instead of chatting with a brand founder, we are hearing from the other side, a creator who's been at the heart of social media revolution. Meet Abigail Friedman, a 24-year-old entrepreneur who specializes in content creation, creative strategy, and social media management. Abby started her journey in 2019 on TikTok, documenting her personal transformation while studying to become a doctor. Wow. Fast forward a few years, and she's gone from med school dreams to helping brands craft authentic content and connect with audiences. Along the way, she's mastered everything from negotiating partnerships to navigating the evolving world of TikTok Shop, which we are going to cover, of course. In this episode, we'll unpack what it's like to be a creator, how brands should approach collaborations, and the do's and don'ts of influencer marketing from someone who's seen it all. Let's dive into the world of content creation with Abby. Hey, Abby, thanks for being here on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to get started. And I feel like there's definitely a lot that we can talk about that'll get even the e-commerce side to understand what it's like, from the creator aspect.
Yeah, I think the content creation itself evolved wildly in the last few years, and I would love to chat about that in a minute. But before that, I'd love to ask you, how did you become a content creator in the first place?
So back in 2019, when I initially started posting on TikTok, I really was divulging information about how I started my fitness journey. So during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, I realized that as someone who's in college still, I was still young, I didn't feel like I was at my healthiest self. And for me, I wanted to do a lot of personal development. So I wanted to figure out how can I become healthier? How can I become more fit? And I embarked on my fitness journey. So after I lost 50 pounds, I ended up sharing about it on TikTok, and I slowly over time built a small community of, maybe 10,000 followers at first, discussing what workouts you can do, what mental exercises I did, what journal prompts I used to kind of help me improve my lifestyle. And I realized that slowly over time, I was paying more attention to editing my videos than I was to my organic chemistry professor,
Right.
and that's how I realized I really love content creation.
So, did you know how to be a creator, or let me rephrase, did you know how to record TikTok videos, TikTok-like videos, let's say?
I think as a young person, it came easily to me because our minds are so malleable that we're easily able to pick up new tasks. So I was definitely not good at it. I mean, if you ever find any of my older videos, like, they suck, and I'm open about it. I know that I didn't like the quality, or I was kind of always hesitant, like, should I post this? Should I not? Is this going to be a good piece of content? I was kind of having like analysis paralysis. And then when I realized, I was like, you know what, whether or not people like that piece of content or they think my editing is top notch, I don't care. This might change someone else's life. I just get it out there anyway. And then because I was doing it every day, 3 times a day, I was getting so good at it as like lightning speed.
And do you remember the day in which you said, I'm a content creator?
I do, actually. I think this was when I was sitting in my boyfriend's old apartment and I was having like a conversation with myself. This was right when I was about to graduate college, and I really hated what I was doing in the pre-med field. I just didn't feel fulfilled and happy. And I was writing a journal prompt and I was asking myself, like, who do you want to be in life? Like, how do you want people to identify you? Like, what do you feel happy doing? And it's actually really funny because in his kitchen at the time, he had a really cute, cheap sign said create. And I said to myself, because I believe in the universe, I believe in God, and I said, God, please give me a sign. And as I'm journaling, I look up at the kitchen and it says create. I'm like, wow, the answer is like right there in front of me. I've been creating content this whole time. I love doing it, but I just didn't believe that this was going to be a paying field. And I said to myself, wait a minute, like there's influencers who are making millions of dollars. Like what's the difference between you and someone who is? You're just starting
Right.
out. Everybody starts at zero.
Right. Did you feel like it was like, did you compare being a creator to being a rock star? Like, it's probably not going to happen to me, or is it probably more achievable than, you know, being a rock star? Like, when talking to your parents, to your family in general, your boyfriend, what did they tell you and what did you think back then?
Yeah, so I come from a very traditional immigrant European family. So for them to think that I'm leaving my pre med career behind and starting something new, starting an entrepreneurial venture was terrifying. They're like, you got to go back to school. This is never going to work out. We came to this country so that you can get a good job.
Right.
And to me, I was like, I was definitely very terrified and scared of trying something new because I felt like my whole life I've worked towards this one goal of becoming a doctor and achieving this big, great thing so that I don't disappoint my family. And in the end, I realized that at the end of the day, nobody's going to pay my bills. No one's going to live my life for me. I have to figure out something that's going to make me happy enough to where I can do this same thing every single day. And at the time, I think I had more of an open mind than anyone else. And of course, my boyfriend was definitely my biggest supporter. But I felt like if I believed it, I could achieve it. I was setting goals at the time. I was teaching myself, well, how can you even achieve goals in fitness, right? And I think the same thing intertwined in achieving anything else in life, because when you teach your body and your mind discipline, you can really achieve anything else. So I was really hell bent on getting anything that I wrote down achieved. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't care how I'm going to do it. It's just going to happen. And I like to say things to myself in I am format, right? So even if I'm not a billionaire, I will call myself a billionaire. And I don't care. These things happen over time because you believe so strongly.
Yeah.
So I wrote down that goal and I was like, you know what? I don't care how it's going to happen, but I'm going to be a content creator. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to be successful. And slowly I kind of started diving into the field of marketing. And I realized that I love doing this. This kind of pairs well with sales psychology. Psychology is something that I was already learning in school during getting my biology degree. So to me, it felt like two very odd worlds combining, but it worked. And it made me realize that this is what I love doing.
Yeah. So, the e-commerce evolved a lot and content creation did too, right? So you started in 2019, right? So
Yes.
how do you see the evolution of content creation?
I think the field of content creation grew so much over time because seeing how things changed simply with even things like TikTok shop being introduced into the creator world, people are starting to get a lot smarter about ads, right? People are paying less attention. People are realizing sometimes things are just trying to get you to buy things. And people want more of that emotional connection in order for them to feel like they truly need to buy a product, right? So over time, people got smarter in recognizing things across social media. So, as a content creator who's been part influencer, part social media manager, part UGC creator, which stands for user generated content, I felt like people were heavily leaning on people who were smaller creators and more UGC creators because they had more of that natural born organic connection. So, typically, what I found happening was when you see an influencer who has millions of followers, that picture perfect life, you're less likely to trust them because you know that they're making thousands and millions of dollars on a promotional post, as opposed to someone who's like a stay at home mom who's showing you a product that genuinely works within her lifestyle. So I felt like content has really converted to, well, really smaller budgets because, a lot of creators aren't charging those millions and thousands. And at the same time, it's converting to real life individuals who can establish that connection, right? You obviously still have to be good at sales, but you have to go about it in a much smarter format. You have to interview it into your lifestyle. You have to know how to connect with the individual that's in that target audience. It's not just about like, oh, I'm getting paid a check to promote this product in a really aesthetic, pretty way, and they're going to buy it just because I am who I am, right? Nobody
Right.
cares who you are. They care about what this product is going to do for you.
Right. But at the same time, we have, many people buying many things from influential people because they believe in them. It's the classic people buy from people. I'm not saying that it's always that way, of course, but we many times buy things from people that probably otherwise we wouldn't have bought, right? If it wasn't for them. I'm not talking about only about creators. I'm talking about people behind the brands, right? Or even the brands, right?
Mhm.
These days we discuss a lot with founders about the founder-led content, how many successful brands we spoke with here in the podcast, they they are successful because of who's behind the brand, because the founder is leading the way with content all the time. Like,
Yes, that sorry, that's another big thing. What I'm saying happen is for brands to be more reputable and trustworthy, a lot of people have to now see that strong personal branding. And that's why I feel like even when I do social media management, I'm always encouraging the founder, like, you have to be that face. You have to show up every day, whether it's through consistent content and posting or just having your face out there and just being more interactive with your audience. You have to be the one that represents it because at the end of the day, they're not just buying the product, they're buying it because of an emotional connection that they feel that they have with the product.
yeah, I can tell you in the fourth seasons we have already completed. This is the fifth one. I interviewed more brands that I can count now that started, as Instagram before TikTok, then of course some on TikTok, but most of them on Instagram without a brand, like just themselves publishing about their life or whatever they liked. And then they started building a brand out of that. Some of them have won, awards, like many, like super well respected awards, not some, sketchy awards that you don't know whether they pay or not. No, like super well known awards in the US, in the UK. And it started out of an Instagram account without any brand behind. So that's probably how far things have become, right? You can start as a creator and then you say, hey, I want to launch my brand. And if people follow you and what you launch is even decent, I'm not even saying good. Of course, it's a great ideal to be good or great what you sell, but even if it's decent, people will buy it at least the first time for what you for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to ask you many questions because as I own an agency and we work with brands and we are starting, to dive deep into TikTok shop with a few of them. And creators is like, we put creators, maybe we are right or maybe we are wrong. But for some reason, we put creators on a pedestal these days. It's like our goal on TikTok shop to be successful as part of the path to success, as many people say on this platform, is to get creators, of course, get content, get affiliates. But the problem is that many brands, and I include myself there, many advertisers or many, marketers, let's say, we are a bit naive when we think about creators, engaging with creators because we think there's, I don't know, the TikTok creator marketplace. We can find creators, we can reach out to them, even if we have no reputation, and they will reply. We'll do some product seeding and we'll be successful with them. And probably we found the hard way. It's not the way it works. So I wanted to ask you a few questions in that line to understand things from your point of view as a creator. So to start off with, how many DMs or emails do you receive a day?
Every day I sift through about 60 to 90 emails.
60 to
And I'm
90 emails.
Yes, and I have to check that every single day. I have 4 email channels too, so it depends on where you're contacting me from. It's obviously for different purposes, but say I'm connected to TikTok Shop, I will get 60 to 90 emails a day. I will be honest with you, I completely gave up on checking my collaboration invites through TikTok itself. And I don't read the messages anymore because there was a point where I was getting nearly 200. And because there's such a high influx and the app, I felt like was very beta in terms of the controls, the messaging, and the access that you would open something and then you would lose it, right? Because there was just so much there. And I stopped looking at it. Honestly, my number one way to, I feel like, communicate with e commerce brands or say to find a product that I really want to promote or work with is I'll either use a platform or you have to really have a great email for me to kind of like pick you out, out of the haystack. But it became like overwhelming to see the amount of outreach that's happening because now that TikTok Shop is as big as Amazon, I want to say, it's becoming overwhelming for creators. And a lot of times competitors are selling the same products, but one of them has higher commission. What if one of them is offering pay and the other isn't? These are all the factors that we have to consider as creators because we can benefit from one opportunity as opposed to the other.
And what makes a brand let's say the brand's outreach at first, and then we can talk about the offer. But what makes a brand's outreach stand out to you?
So when they're sending me, say, for example, a message within the TikTok creator marketplace, the first thing that I would typically look at is the brand name. Like if it's a brand name that doesn't directly correlate to their products, some people make their shop name something ridiculous, like a personal name, has nothing to do with what they're selling. If the profile picture is like unidentifiable, where I can't really understand what your product is, because remember, I'm looking at a whole list of hundreds of messages, I need it to kind of like pop out visually. If they start with a very generic message. So if I do open the message and I find that their message is very lengthy, and they have a few paragraphs in there and they're also including a brief and requirements and all these expectations, I'm just kind of automatically turned off. Because the first thing I want to know is, okay, what is your product and does your product represent my channel? Because with TikTok Shop, it's not just UGC content creation. This is now something that's associated with my face, my personal presence, and is this product representative of who I am? Because like I mentioned earlier, buyers are getting smarter, right? They don't want to just buy something because they know the creator is getting paid. I've gotten several comments on my posts being like, I'm not buying this just because I know you're making money off of this, because people are so vindictive. So you have to just be real. You have to be selecting items that resonate with who you are and what you believe in, right? No matter how much money. I mean, I've gotten deals where I was getting offered thousands of dollars to promote something that I didn't believe in, and I've declined it. But a lot of people won't do that anymore. So that's kind of where the creator realm needs to change a little bit on their end. But back to the brand aspect, I think it's about creating a strong and clear brand identity, right? Some of them will still be like different symbols or different languages. And I'm like, how can I read this? You're reaching out to an American content creator and we have no idea what you're saying to us.
Right. So basically, they need to have a clear message, clear profile. You need to be able to identify the brand. But what about the messaging itself? What is it that you would like to read in a perfect pitch? Let's say, I'm not sure about perfect, but in a decent to good pitch from a brand, what information are you looking for? Because we know we all skim through the text to find what we
Mm-hmm.
want to find. So what is it like? What pieces of information are you looking for in some of those outreach?
Yeah. So for myself, and I can't speak for other creators, but I would typically look for either pay or immediately the commission rate. And the reason for that is because I feel like I'm getting so many opportunities that at this point I have the right to be picky, right? So I know that I'm a good creator. I know that I can generate sales. Essentially, you're going to walk home with money. So what can you do for me if I'm doing this for you? It should be a mutually beneficial relationship. A lot of brands will think that because they have an exclusive name, they can just send out a product and the creator won't benefit in any way. And that's happened, believe it or not, with TikTok Shop. They'll create the video, but then the shop will actually remove your commission earnings. And the next thing you know is that the video is going viral, the brand's making sales, but they're no longer paying you the commission. So people have done some really sketchy things, across TikTok Shop, but you have to just use your discernment. Like, is this brand really going to work with me? And am I going to benefit from working with them as well?
Are you okay with mentioning here how much do you charge for your standard rates for, different packages? Or if you don't want to mention yours, it could be the industry average, at least for different offerings, right?
Yeah, so for TikTok Shop, generally, I like to do like for, say, I have 60,000 followers, I would be charging $600 for a post if it was just sponsored and I did not earn commission. Now, a lot of people would argue that that's unfair. It's either too much, too little, but I feel like, no clear industry standard for how these things should be monetarily converted because a lot of factors go into place. Like, will this brand be whitelisting the content? Are they going to be running it as an ad for a whole year? Are you going to be making commission off of it? Is your engagement good? Is this product actually within your niche? Have you gone viral promoting something else like this product before? So for me, I don't really introduce a rate. Like, because I know that I can generate sales, I'm typically okay with working with a high percent commission, like something like 20 or 25%. And because I get to represent products that I like and that things that I'm going to be using in my daily lifestyle, I know that I'll be making enough content to where something is going to end up performing well for that brand and for me. So I think that when it comes to TikTok Shop, I don't like to refer to a standard rate. When it comes to UGC, of course, that's a whole different story because that means that the brand owns the content. So I have to somehow get paid for creating that and getting it to them in the first place because it is going to be generating them sales. So it's a really different kind of area. I feel like there's all these different fields within content creation that you can monetize from. But when it comes to TikTok Shop, it's definitely still a gray area. And brands, one thing that I do have to advise to brands is that because it is becoming such a competitive market, the ones that are offering to pay flat rate plus commission are usually the ones that get the best content.
And what would be a good, let's say, of course, each creator charges different things. But what would be a decent, like you mentioned on one hand, 600 for a post with no commission, and then 20 or 30% uh, without like a flat fee. So what would be the perfect combination between the two?
I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, like I said, but I would probably be happy with like $250 flat rate for getting the video out. And then, like 15 to 20% commission.
Okay. And that
And you
entitle
also,
the
sorry.
brand to, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say is I feel like creators also have to learn how to be fair. Like you can't be charging, hundreds or thousands for a startup as opposed to someone who definitely has the marketing budget and has put it behind. It's like I said, it's about using your discernment.
Exactly about what happened, what's happening. And of course, it's a question to you as well. But what I've heard it's happening is that, as you said before, you receive a ton of messages a day. And at the end of the day, you look for I don't know if you look for the highest bidder, because of course, let's assume those, people we are talking about, or those companies are in your niche. Like let's put them in the same bag, let's say with the same conditions. So from all of them, of course, I guess that you're going to work with the one that will pay you the most. Or am I looking at things wrong?
I genuinely feel like sometimes it's not about the pay. If there's so many of them and say all of them have the same rate that they're offering me, right? Or one of them might be higher than the other. I think I'm also going to consider the quality of the product more than I would consider the pay. Because at the end of the day, like we're both going to make money, right? The flat rate pay doesn't matter to me. I know the more that I sell of something, the more it's going to perform, right? The more I keep creating, the more it does better, right? So for me, I think I need to consider like, say I'm looking for home furniture and I'm creating content around home furniture at the time. I'm going to be selecting a product that has good reviews. I'm going to be selecting a product that already has a history of it's already made sales, right? Because TikTok Shop tells you how many units have sold. And I'm going to be looking for something that I feel like is better quality than most. The reason for that is because I feel like when I'm creating a video, I can be more genuine in speaking about the product's aspects, and that comes across to the other person. And that's how I make my money. It's by being real. A lot of people will be like, well, this product's going viral. Even if I don't like it, I'll make the video and I'll make my money off of it. No, people can actually tell when you're being authentic in your content. So it's a combination. I definitely want to say it's a combination. The brand has to meet my expectations in terms of what the product is with pay and product. And we have to make sure that it's something that I feel like I can be truthful about.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think about AI creators that I've been seeing a few of them lately? So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
I think it's going to be like a wildfire. I think it's going to be on fire for a little bit, but then eventually all fires die out. I think that's going to happen because people crave real human connection and interaction. Social media started simply off the fact that we want to connect with more people. I mean, I I don't know, personally, I don't like having the AI creators. I feel like it's inauthentic. It comes across very robotic even if it's real. Personally, I feel like the people who think that it looks too real, I mean, I don't know, what's your IQ at if you can't discern if someone's a robot or not on camera? It's a little creepy to me. But I think that it takes away from the opportunity of creators to be authentic, and people will definitely know eventually. How good can AI get? I can't really answer that. I mean, it's evolving very, very fast. There is a chance that maybe they could start replacing the content, but humans need human interaction. I don't know. I'll always believe in that.
Yeah, I have like my take on that. I agree with you fully. Like I cannot stand, call me old school or not, but I cannot stand being in a social, channel, as such as TikTok, Instagram, etc., and interact with non-humans. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound natural, and it's not that I'm worried about that alone. That's probably the tip of the iceberg, right? Because we cannot tell
Yeah.
over the years whether it's a human, or it's really hard to tell whether it's a human or an AI, where will this lead to? What's next? Because social media is not the goal. It's like, what are we going to see? Like TV shows made by AI, no actors, like people will be for real out of a job, or it will be a premium to have people in some content, whether that's a movie, a short for social media. It's, will we see like the rise of human only social media, you know, networks? I don't know, right? But yeah, I'm super curious because let me tell you something that I have checked out some of the available tools these days, and I was watching the demo video showing you around the tool, and then by the end of the video, the person, the human being, let's say, apparently showing you around the tool, they said, guess what? An AI too. I'm not a human. And it was like, what? Maybe it was because I wasn't paying attention, because I didn't watch it again, right? But I was so focused on the tool and listening to her. It was a woman, and then she was AI too. So it was like, what the heck is going on? So yeah, it was.
Yeah, it could get to a point where they start to get so advanced that, they could trick us. But I don't know. It's not something that I like, and it's not something that I want happening, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. So I would like to talk about, TikTok Shop. We cover a little bit. So how do you handle the balance between, with your audience, from telling, your story, being, let's say, influential, or showing them the content that they like to see, with being, let's say, salesly and promote products? Like, do you have a well-defined cadence that you found that works well for you to promote, products and brands, or how does that work for you?
I think my number one rule is always choosing products that I feel like represent me. I will never ever accept something that I feel like I don't like because, like I said, it won't come across as authentic and I feel like I can't use it in my everyday life, right? So the goal that I have, I guess, with influencing is I want to influence you to get something that's going to make your life better or easier. Even if it's something as simple as a beauty product, right? Sometimes it just makes us girls happy to have a new lip gloss product, right? I like lip gloss. Who cares, right? You want a little lip gloss? Buy a little lip gloss. It's a good little treat for yourself. But I will never show something that I feel like I don't like. And that's just because in this content creator realm, like, yes, you do have to get a job and make money and you have to monetize so that you can make a living. But your job also is to be truthful. And a lot of creators are not like that.
Question about some legal stuff. Do you typically sign any kind of agreements with brands? And
Oh, hello? I lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I could hear you now.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello?
Sorry. I will ask you again. Yeah. I will ask you again. Let me get the. So I'm curious about some legal question now. Do brands that work with you typically make you sign any type of agreement, or do you make them sign any type of agreement for the rise of using your content, for how long, and what's the scope of the collaboration?
Yeah, so I actually have a lawyer approved contract that I use when I have any sort of collaboration that's via email. So I like to say via email because if it's off TikTok Shop, then it's almost like TikTok Shop Creator Marketplace becomes responsible for handling the collaboration, right? So typically what would happen is I request a sample from directly off TikTok Shop and I have to publish that video. Otherwise, the sample will say unmarked and it goes against my account. So when it's off a platform like Incense, for example, the platform becomes the contract. They have their own set of rules for the brand and the creator. But when I'm working without a third party and I have someone contacting me directly, I have to have a contract because I have had instances where brands have stolen my content. They've taken way too long to pay. And I've learned over time that it's just worth getting the money, pay the money to get a contract that's actually legalized.
Okay, makes sense. So I want to change subjects for a bit and talk about, the day-to-day routines, tools you use. So I would love to ask you a few questions in that realm. So let's start with let's say the content creation routine. What's your routine? What kind of tools do you use, and how do you organize yourself to create content? How many hours do you dedicate? Probably that's a lot of questions, but let's see how it goes.
Let's see how many I can answer in one shot. So, for a typical day, right? Let's start with a typical week because for me, I feel like there's no set day where I can have. I like to kind of like bulk schedule things. So, if I have a ton of brands that I'm shooting within a certain period of time, I like to bulk shoot on either a Monday or a Tuesday. But there's also times that I have to have meetings with my clients or briefing calls. So I'll schedule everything on one day so that the rest of the week I can either divert to doing editing, filming, or, organizing. During the holiday season, like I found that during Black Friday, I'll get the highest influx of work. So, like Q4, I guess they call it, of the marketing season, when it's October, November, and December, I will get the busiest. So, what I'll do is I'll have all these products that come in. I'll bulk shoot 2 or 3 days of the week, and the rest of the week I'll spend executing and editing. So for me, it's really about like how much daylight can I use because I want to film in natural daylight. That's when I get the best shots. And when I don't, or if it's a rainy or snowy day out, I'll use my ring light like I'm using right now. So my tools typically include a tripod. I feel like you can't be a content creator without a tripod. It just makes your life so easy. You have to have a good lighting system. I used to live in an apartment that had great lighting. I had like a corner window, and that's where I filmed all my content. I barely used a ring light. And now I live in the woods in a cottage, and I have way less lighting here than I would, without shade. So I think it really comes down to using the minimal amount of things that you can. As long as you're creative and you have a clear quality product, that's all you really should be worried about.
Okay. Let's talk about the tools and the software you use to create and edit content.
So I would typically film all content on my phone. Right now I have the iPhone 14 Pro and they do have a high quality camera. So depending on if the brand wants the content in either 4K or social media standard, which is 1080 by 30 frame rate. So I would film that either, I'll change that in my settings and I'll just film with my phone. I will edit everything in CapCut. It's a lot more reliable than filming an app because filming an app definitely compromises quality and sometimes you don't want anything getting lost. So you definitely risk losing something if you film it in the app. Um, a lot of times, if I'm doing like graphic edits for clients or if I'm creating like fun little infographics or designs, I'll use Canva. That's definitely for people who I feel like are more diversified into like social media management or if they're creating imagery other than videos. And as for any other apps, like for me to stay organized, when I figure out the content pieces that I'm shooting and editing, like I'll use Google Sheets just to keep track of everything that came in the mail, how much the brand owes me, when the due date is for the piece of content. And for actually calendarizing, like for example, for social media management, I use an app called Airtable. So
Yeah.
Airtable lets you get a calendarized view where you could see every single concept that you input, whether you want to inload, like the photos, the videos itself, or just the caption, the title, the idea.
Okay. And do you have the a content creation, let's say, I don't want to call it formula, but let's say formula framework. Like, do you have a method, let's say, to record content? Like, first you record, I don't know, 3 hooks, then you record 3 shots from different angles for the main content, and then some call to actions if there are any in the video.
So I think each brief is different. So each brand will have different requirements, but typically the most standard form that I would see is the hook, the body, and the call to action. So I like to have a lot of speaking content because I feel like that resonates better with an audience than just showcasing the product without having the person in it, right? A lot of times brands will pay for my face. So I will have myself in it, but then I'll also culminate like an accumulation of B-roll footage. So I like to get footage of the product in use, what the product looks like, the product, functioning, and then a combination. So I like to overlay the footage on top of me speaking as well as holding the product. So it kind of gives you like the wraparound. If I'm doing like a UGC ad style video, which is generally made to be run through as an ad, I'll pretty much encompass the whole vibe of the product. What are the brand values? What does the product do? What problem does it solve? You want to have all of that in the body. And then, of course, you want to start out with a good hook so that they can actually get to the body of the video. At
Right.
the end, you finish it off with, whether this product is on sale or you want them to buy it or click the link below, whatever it is that that call to action is, I'll make sure to incorporate that at the end.
Do brands typically send you a script with everything you have to say, or just the guidelines?
I say that it's 50-50. I've gotten a lot of brands that want you to say specific things and they'll give you a script, but a lot of times I write out the script. And I always like to get my scripts approved beforehand. So I'll write something out with the ideas, the scenery that I want to incorporate, and I'll send it over to the brand. Because the last thing you want happening is that you think you have like this great idea that the brand is going to love, but then the brand ends up hating it and you have to refilm it. So you don't want to execute it and waste more time, especially when you have all this other work to get to.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm surprised actually. I thought you were going to say that you don't receive any scripts, because I thought that it wasn't a good practice. I mean, both for you and the brand. I think that brands should leverage the content creators, let's say style and the way they organically say things and do things. But it looks like it's something common, and it's not something that you will probably think that is a bad thing for you to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with like say probably 300 brands just in the last like year. So
Wow.
I've definitely seen a lot of variety and I wish that they would trust creators a little bit more. Like I've seen things that have worked and I've seen things that haven't worked. So obviously I want to help you get the best results possible. Like we're benefiting from each other here. So I wish that they would kind of like trust me in terms of knowing what to say and how to, script it out. But sometimes brands are very set in their ways, and if they're testing concepts, let them test their concepts. It is what it is.
Exactly. So now for aspiring creators, those who want to say, hey, now I'm listening to Avi and I want to be one as well. I want to get started, or probably they are getting started, but having a tough time getting started. I wanted to ask you a few questions on that. To start off with, what's the hardest part of being a creator that most people don't see?
The hardest part is just getting started, right? A lot of people have problems with consistency. People fail and they fail just because they give up, right? You're not seeing results in a month or 3 months or the next day and you get frustrated and you give up. And a lot of creators will do that. Instead of staying consistent and posting every day and practicing that editing every day and just getting their content and their face out there, they automatically just stop because they feel like they're not seeing what they want to see, right? No one was born with a million followers. Like everybody starts at zero. And a lot of people just don't have the patience to keep going. So if you have the consistency and the determination, those are probably the two most important things in becoming a creator or at least an influencer. For UGC, it's a little bit different because you can reap the benefits of using platforms that offer paying jobs without having to have social media. But I always advise for creators to have a culmination of both because you are stronger as a creator when you've shown a brand that you know what you're doing on social media.
Right? Are you active on more than one channel?
I would say I'm equally active on TikTok and Instagram. I strive to post at least once a day on both platforms. TikTok scheduling works a little bit different because I'm promoting more products. I will post 3 to 4 times a day, but my Instagram is actually catered more towards my social media management clients and how they can use social media to grow their business. So it's a little bit more business oriented.
Right. So you post different content in both.
Yes, and what I've learned too is that if you
Right.
have a platform that's bigger than the other, it's actually leveraging you to have different content on both because it gives people a reason from one platform to follow you on the other.
Amazing. I was going to ask you another question for aspiring creators. Yeah, so I guess you partially answered that, but I would love to dig deeper into that for a minute. What's probably the minimum commitment for a content creation they should aspire to? Like you mentioned, probably once a day. Is it really once a day? Is it twice a day? 3 times? Is it 3 times a week? What do you think that's the probably recommended cadence of posting, let's say, videos in the beginning when you're starting out?
So, what works for me might not necessarily work for someone else. I'm hearing a lot of mixed things about what's happening with TikTok because in the next year, what we could potentially be seeing is that TikTok wants to migrate to longer form content, which also means higher quality, longer, and it's also going to be landscape. So, they essentially have said to creators in a creator summit that they want people to be posting that style of content, but they also want it to be in less posts, less amount of posting. So you would have to put out one video as opposed to doing the typical style of what I do now, which is 3 or 4. But at the same time, is that applying to TikTok shop creators? Like, we don't really know because there's so much, it's a very vague field of information out there. You can hear mixed things from a lot of social media experts. So I would always say experiment to see what style works best for you and which one gives you the most results. Like, as a TikTok shop creator, I find that when I post 3 or 4 times a day, one of those 4 posts always performs well. I learn from what went well on that post through my TikTok studio, and then I recreate the same method. So for me, it's just studying off of my own experimentations, kind of like what I did when I was in pre-med, when I was studying in school. So
Yeah.
I like to test different results and see what I get. As for Instagram, I'm finding that posting in bulk doesn't really help. Instagram is definitely migrating towards having a little bit of a longer form of content because this year they did roll out Reels best practices, which tells you that they're looking for videos that need to range between 60 to 90 seconds. I also know that based off my own profile, when I'm speaking to the camera just as we are right now, I get better results than just posting an aesthetic video, which is what most people have been used to on Instagram for the longest time. I think now it's about providing value and not just providing the best highlights of your life.
Do you do TikTok shop lives or any other of lives on social to sell products?
I would like to do TikTok shop lives. However, I don't do them because I feel that I'm so busy within my creator business that I don't really have the time to kind of like devote to doing a live. I do think it is very beneficial for creators, and TikTok is definitely pushing that out. Every 3 or every 4 or 5 posts that you see on the For You page, you have a live. So lives are definitely relevant.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I wanted to thank you for coming to the pod. And probably the last question about this that I have for you is, what do you think that will happen next year with, what everyone is talking about, social commerce? Many people are saying, that Meta is going to finally release their TikTok shop like, features. They started with the shop, but now with I think a native affiliate center and all the stuff. So do you think that will be like a really big thing in the next year or two? Do you think that YouTube shopping is going to be big as well? What do you think about that?
So I think that when it comes to social media, what I always say is follow the money because all the platforms are going to be following exactly where all the money goes. They want to keep people in their platform at all times. So when they're seeing a competitor, do something that's keeping people within the shopping experience, they might try to replicate that. So I do really much think that they're going to try to improve their shopping experience because right now Instagram's shopping features are not great. It's very I don't want to call it like lengthy, but with TikTok shop, it's a one-click destination, right? You add it to your cart, you check out, you're good to go. It's like Amazon, you get delivery, whatever. But through Instagram, it's, select your products. You have to make sure that you go out of your way to add it to your cart. Like, there's all these things you have to complete before getting to the final step. So I really do think that they're going to start introducing features that make your shopping experience a lot more seamless. And at the same time, like I do think that in terms of 2025 for creators specifically, if we want creators to start succeeding, they have to know how to just start offering more value. Start being real, start being authentic, and start being organic. Like, the reason TikTok took off really is because people felt like it was okay to have a personality. Instagram is not like that. A lot of people on Instagram are very like, let me just give you the best aspects of my life. This is the prettiest photo you've ever seen. And we're just going to continue with that whole aesthetic vibe. I think there's going to be a big shift away from aesthetic content. I think now it's all going to be about who's most comfortable speaking in front of the camera, who's most comfortable being their true self. Now it's going to be, I guess you can call it like a comfort creator, right? You're comfortable to watch. People are comfortable seeing you in your natural environment.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, before wrapping up, I always like asking the guests here in the pod by the end of the episode whether they have a book to mention, a book that they like. It could be a business book or non-business book, or it could be a person, someone you admire, you follow, and you want to give them a shout out. So do you have a book or a person to mention?
Yeah, there's actually 2 things that come in mind. So this book isn't really related to business, more so it's related to how you can believe in yourself to achieve anything you want. And it's called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's one of my favorite books, and that's actually the book that I read that got me started on my fitness journey, that got me started in believing in any goals that I set. So I think it's a great read for everyone. It does back it up with a lot of scientific proof on like what happens in your mind when you start to believe in yourself. And then the second person that I think of that kind of comes to mind when it comes to the business aspect is Cody Sanchez. As a creator, as someone who actually left her work field to become a business creator, she really stands out to me because she has a lot of valuable insight on how to perform business. But also, if you kind of look at her content strategy and who she is as a creator, you can take away a lot from that.
Love it. Abigail, where can people go to learn more about you? And of course, well, I typically say you and your business, but in this case, you are both you and your business, right?
Yeah, so my username across all channels, all platforms, and my website is just Abby Fridman. So ABBYFRIDMAN. And
As
that's
easy
all
as we can.
across every social media.
Yeah, as always, for those listening to this or why not watching this, you can feel free to go to the ddcinsider.com. And once you find the episode, you will see all the show notes there, including her social handles. Abby, it was a pleasure to have you here in the podcast. Thank you again.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.